September 1985. A huge crowd has gathered at a place known as Cumberland Knob, located just off the legendary road known as the Blue Ridge Parkway. The occasion is a celebration of the 50th anniversary of the road's existence, a precedent-setting event for an achievement which has been setting precedent since its birth in 1935.
News teams from 4 states were on hand.
Marching bands from several local high schools, and more than a few high-ranking government officials were there, including the present Parkway Superintendent, Gary Everhart, and 3 of his predecessors. Thousands gathered to enjoy good food, entertainment, and numerous arts and crafts displays, and to pay homage to this majestic highway and those who helped create it. But this was more than an anniversary. It was a rededication, a day for looking back and for looking ahead, a day to celebrate America's favorite drive, the Blue Ridge Parkway.
As I ride along your crested peaks, see the tiny lights below. All the worries and the cares just fade away. And it appears to me that what I see is a mirror to the past. And there are some things in this world that never change. And the road keeps rolling on, and I can see my way to a new and brighter day. And so let's look beyond the farthest ridge. We may find eternity. There's a quiet nook, an overlook, a tiny path somewhere, and I'm feeling like a child when I'm there. Through the waterfall I hear a call, and I am not afraid. It's the angel of the Appalachian Way. And the road keeps rolling on, and I can see my way to a new and brighter day. And so let's look beyond the farthest ridge to a morning sun, rainbow dawn, autumn breeze in the flaming trees, whispering pine, yours and mine. All we have to do is enjoy the view.
The story of how the Blue Ridge Parkway came into existence is a fascinating one, involving the lives of countless dedicated men and women. Volumes have been written on the subject, and indeed an entire program could be done on the Parkway's history alone. However, it is our intention to merely highlight the basic points of historical interest. The Blue Ridge Parkway was started as a make-work project by President Franklin D. Roosevelt's newly created Public Works Commission. The commission, headed by Harold Ickes, was intended to provide relief for victims of the Great Depression, especially the isolated, desolate people of the Appalachian Mountain region. Great turmoil ensued before actual construction began, and heated controversy continues today over who was responsible for the idea. The furor over which path the road was to take nearly led to a civil war between North Carolina and Tennessee. The decision was finally made to construct the scenic parkway between Shenandoah National Park in Virginia and the Great Smoky Mountains National Park in North Carolina and Tennessee, both controlled by the National Park Service, a division of the United States Department of Interior. A talented young man named Stanley Abbott became the first resident landscape architect for the parkway in 1933. His brilliance is primarily responsible for the incredible transformation of rugged mountain terrain into this beautiful highway in the sky. But without resourceful men like Granville Lyles One of the National Park Service's first parkway rangers, the road would be an unrealized idea, not a reality.
All the good farmlands, meadowlands, and grazing lands along the parkway consist of several thousand acres. We rented that land back to the local landowners to preserve the farm scene, so that now as you travel the parkway, you can enjoy a farm scene that's characteristic of the turn of the century. You'll see split rail fences, cattle grazing, you'll see fields of cabbage and buckwheat and corn, so that you have a sense of traveling through the early frontier of the Blue Ridge country. And many places have been preserved, like cabins and homes and the grist mill at Mabry Mill, so that you drive down the parkway and you have a sense of going through a period in history 75, 100 years ago.
Our journey begins at the southern boundary of the Shenandoah National Park at Waynesboro, Virginia, at the end of Skyline Drive and the beginning of the Blue Ridge Parkway. Rockfish Gap at milepost 0 is one of many gaps or intersections we'll pass through on our journey. Our first stop at milepost 5.8 is the Humpback Rocks Visitor Center, featuring an authentic, informative pioneer homestead exhibit. Most of the structures were built about 1880 and moved to their present location in 1953. Milepost 8.8, Greenstone Overlook and Trail, named for the large greenstone boulder balanced on an outcrop within the overlook. The self-guiding trail explains Appalachian geology. Milepost 10.7, Raven's Roost Overlook. Unusual rock formations jut out from the side of the mountain. Milepost 13.7, Stone Fences, built during World War II by conscientious objectors. Milepost 19, 20-Minute Cliff, a rock face which serves as a timepiece for the people in the community below. Rock climbers enjoy this spot, at their own risk, of course. Milepost 26.4, Big Spy Mountain Overlook, featuring a short trail leading to a high pasture known as the War Fields. Whetstone Ridge Recreation Area offers a chance to pause and notice one of the numerous displays erected by the National Park Service for our enjoyment. These displays can be found all along the parkway. They're both enlightening and informative. So take the time to read them and follow the trails mapped out on them, and your trip will be all the more rewarding. Milepost 34.4, the Yankee Horse Ridge Parking Area, featuring an interesting logging railroad exhibit. Wigwam Creek and falls are a major part of the beauty of this attraction. At milepost 46.9, we reach Indian Gap, where the Indian Rocks exhibit stands in the middle of an undisturbed forest. Milepost 60.8, the Otter Creek Recreation Area, featuring a unique restaurant and numerous trail systems along the edge of pristine Otter Creek. Winding along its way to Otter Lake, milepost 63.1. And finally to the James River, featuring a restored lock and canal and wayside exhibit. The Trail of the Trees is a 30-minute self-guiding trail with photo views of the mountainsides, the bridge, and the river. At milepost 74.4, we reach the highest point on the parkway in Virginia at 3,950 feet, at Thunder Ridge, featuring a 10-minute loop trail. The lush green foliage seen here is characteristic of spring along the parkway. But let's stop for a moment and imagine how the scene might look in winter. In summer, in fall, the four distinct seasons make the parkway a year-round playground, not just a summer vacation land. In fact, some of the less popular seasonal changes can be just as intriguing. Like the very end of fall, right before winter sets in. Or the very beginning of spring, when the first leaves appear. Consider driving the parkway in the early morning hours or the late evening hours, so you can watch the sun as it angles through the trees, creating exciting visual effects. Milepost 85.6, the Peaks of Otter Lodge, a perfect blend of old-time simplicity and modern comfort. Milepost 92.2, Purgatory Mountain,
which received its name from a creek located in the town below. Further down, view Virginia's Great Valley, once traveled by pioneers and Indians. Milepost 110.6, Stewart Knob, the final peak of the Blue Ridge before it subsides into Roanoke Valley. Milepost 114.9, Roanoke River Trail. The short path leads to a superb view. Milepost 120.3, a scenic 4-mile view over Roanoke Mountain with 7 overlooks. Mill Mountain Zoo is a favorite of children and parents alike. And the sprawling view of Roanoke is spectacular. Milepost 133, Slings Gap Overlook, the Parkway portal to the Blue Ridge Plateau. At milepost 136, we cross Adney Gap. At milepost 138.6, we reach Sweet Annie Hollow Gap. The legend of Sweet Annie Hollow involves a widow who entertained troops in a most irreligious manner during the Revolution. Milepost 139.9, Cahay's Mountain, derived from the Indian word for crow. Followed by Pine Spur Overlook.
So let's look beyond the forest ridge to a morning sun, rainbow dawn, autumn breeze in the flaming trees, with springtime, yours and mine. All we have to do is remember
Milepost 154.5, the Smart View Recreation Area with picnic grounds and trails. Built in the 1890s and inhabited until 1925. Milepost 162.4, Rake's Mill Pond. Over 100 years ago, Jarman Rake allowed his customers to fish in his pond while they waited for their cornmeal. Our next stop is milepost 167. Rocky Knob, a towering bare-faced mountain rising above the neighboring lowlands. The next 2 miles comprise the Rocky Knob Recreation Area with trails, picnic, and campgrounds. Milepost 168, the view from the saddle, a swayback ridge connecting 2 high points on Rocky Knob Mountain. .1, the Rocky Knob Housekeeping Cabins, 1 mile east on a spur road. Milepost 176.2, Mabry Mill, an old-time grist mill, featuring pioneer exhibits, a blacksmith shop, a sorghum mill,
and even a moonshine still. While visiting Mabry Mill, be sure to stop at the excellent restaurant and gift shop. Milepost 188.8, the view from Groundhog Mountain, named for the plump, timid creatures common along the parkway. Featuring a rail fence exhibit and an observation tower used by the Virginia Forest Service during World War II. Milepost 189.9, the home of Aunt Orlena Puckett, a generous midwife who delivered over 1,000 mountaineer babies. Milepost 191.9, the Bluemont Church. Bob Childress, a staunch Presbyterian minister, persuaded his congregation to build this church of native stone. We ride through Orchard Gap. Delicious apples flourish in the cool climate of this quaint community. We now reach a major access point on the parkway. Highway 52 connects with I-77. If we leave the parkway and head north on Route 89, we reach Galax, Virginia, where, during the second week in August, the Old Fiddlers Convention has been a tradition since 1935. Milepost 216.9, the North Carolina state line. .6, Fox Hunters Paradise, once a rendezvous for local fox hunters. Milepost 230.1, Little Glade Mill Pond. The Parkway built this pond near an old turbine-type mill. Devil's Garden Overlook, 235.7. The rocky lowlands are full of rattlesnakes and copperheads. Milepost 237.1, the very windy Air Bellows Gap. .5, the Brinniger Cabin, another authentic mountain homestead. Milepost 238.6 through 234.8, the Doughton Park, 6,000 acres of rugged wilderness. Also, the site of many conveniences, including a lodge and a coffee shop. Bluff Mountain is part of Doughton Park, with Bluff Lodge located at its summit. 252.5, Jesse Sheets Cabin, a one-room cabin built about 1815. Milepost 258.6, the Northwest Trading Post, a potpourri of distinctive products made by the residents of 11 neighboring counties. You never know what you'll see on the Blue Ridge Parkway. At Milepost 266, we came upon these grazing buffalo. Milepost 272.6, the Cool Spring Baptist Church, and Jesse Brown's Cabin, both built in the late 1800s. We've now entered Jeffress Park, named for an early official who helped persuade government officials to locate the parkway in this area. The Cascades Nature Trail is a special feature of this park. Milepost 281.7,
the Grand View Overlook, appropriately named, with a bird's eye view of Yadkin Valley, once the home of Daniel Boone. Milepost 285.1, Boone's Trace, a frequent route of the adventurous explorer who led settlers westward. Milepost 289.5, the Raven Rock Overlook. Ravens still nest in these rocky outcrops. Milepost 290.4, Thunder Hill, again aptly named. The biggest, darkest clouds gather over this mountain. Milepost 293, the Moses H. Cone Memorial Park, featuring a Parkway Craft Center operated by the Southern Highland Handicraft Guild, and a 22-acre bass lake. Don't forget your fishing pole. Bordering Moses Cone Park is Julian Price Memorial Park and the mesmerizing beauty of 47-acre Price Lake. If we leave the parkway and head 2 miles south on 221, we reach Blowing Rock, again aptly named. Not far from Blowing Rock is the grandeur of Grandfather Mountain. The jagged peaks outline Grandfather's profile. We see it here again from Parkway Mile 306.6. Not far from Grandfather is Beach Mountain, one of several popular ski resorts located off the parkway. Lynn Cove Viaduct, the final link in the parkway chain, is an engineering marvel which must be seen to be fully appreciated. Milepost 308.3, the Flat Rock Nature Trail, with a panoramic view into Linville Valley. Milepost 310, the Lost Cove Cliffs, one of several views of the mysterious Brown Mountain Lights. At milepost 16.5, we are treated to the wonder of Linville Falls and Gorge. A short spur trail leads to the falls. The falls originated millions of years ago, and the process of carving canyons out of quartzite rock continues today. Just off the parkway on US 221 is the superlative Wiseman's View. Featuring Hawksbill Mountain and Table Rock. A stone's throw further on US 221 are the Linville Caverns. We rejoin the parkway and arrive at milepost 328, the Chestoa View, derived from the Cherokee word for rabbit. A lofty view from Humpback Mountain. Hawksbill and Table Rock and Grandfather are visible from this peak. At milepost 328.6, view the loops, over 31 miles of railroad track, slicing through the southern Appalachian chain. Nearby is the Museum of North Carolina Minerals, containing exhibits of dozens of native minerals. Followed by Crabtree Meadows at 339.5, cool meadows and virgin forest lands sprinkled with flowering shrubs and mountain herbs. Milepost 350.4, Green Knob Overlook, peering into a valley which was once the homeland of the Catawba Indian. 4.8 miles on North Carolina 128 is Mount Mitchell State Park, named for Dr. Elisha Mitchell, a professor who studied the peaks and plunged to his tragic and untimely death in 1857. Glass Mine Falls, 361.2. The falls have dried up, but the view of Horse Range Ridge is excellent. Milepost 364.1, Craggy Dome. A pleasant hike through the gardens leads to the summit and a fantastic 360-degree view. The Craggy Visitor Center is right at our feet. A 700-acre recreation area is set in a grassy glade called Bearpen Gap. Milepost 372.1, Lane Pinnacle. Charles Lane, who owned the Pinnacle in early times, mined iron ore from its northern slope. .373.8, Bull Creek Valley. Once a homeland for the great bull buffalo, plentiful in this region before the arrival of the white hunter. Milepost 376.7, Tanbark Ridge Overlook, once the site of a family tannery. At Milepost 382, experience the beauty of handmade crafts by the South's most creative artists at the Folk Arts Center in cool green Asheville, North Carolina. The Folk Arts Center offers a variety of attractions. The Allen Stand Craft Shop, a special craft exhibit gallery, and a craft library. The Folk Arts Center is also headquarters for the Southern Highland Handicraft Guild, which sponsors the annual Guild Fair every July and October. Additionally, the Folk Arts Center holds concerts in its large auditorium and hosts special competitions like the Jee-Haw Wimmy-Diddle Contest. At Milepost 393.8, view the French Broad River, one of the nation's few north-flowing rivers. 396.4, Walnut Cove Overlook, named for its throngs of walnut trees. With a king's view of the French Broad Valley, and one of several entry points to the Shut-In Trail. Milepost 399.7, Bad Fork Valley Overlook. Milepost 404.2, Hominy Valley Overlook, named for the variety of whole kernel corn which is ground into a hominy grits, a southern breakfast favorite. At milepost 407.4, we reach Mount Pisgah, named for the biblical peak from which Moses first viewed the Promised Land. Milepost 408.6, the Mount Pisgah Inn, a haven in the wilderness. Quiet, refreshing, relaxing. Milepost 410.3, the Pink Beds Overlook. Milepost 411.8, the Cold Mountain Overlook, a 6,000-foot peak that lives up to its name every winter. From Wagon Road Gap, head south 4 miles on Highway 276 and enjoy the Cradle of Forestry Visitor Center and exhibit, showcasing the actual buildings used by the earliest forest rangers. A little farther south is Sliding Rock. Be prepared for some cold water. And a little farther on 276, the beautiful Looking Glass Falls. We rejoin the parkway and ride to Looking Glass Rock, a 400-foot sheer cliff. Milepost 418.8, Graveyard Fields. The ridge in front of us reaches to a height of 5,600 feet. Mounds of overgrown moss once gave the appearance of a huge graveyard, but fire destroyed them in 1925. A short distance from Graveyard Fields is the Shining Rock Wilderness, a hiker's paradise. Devil's Courthouse, 422.4, a rocky, rugged cliff. Inside is a cave where legend claims the devil still holds his court. Milepost 431, the Haywood-Jackson Overlook. This brings us to the highest point on the parkway, Richland Balsam at 6,053 feet. Milepost 439.4, Covefield Ridge, overlooking the quiet rural suburbs of Waynesville, North Carolina. The Wesner Bald Overlook, 447.9. Followed at milepost 451 by perhaps the most dramatic of all, Water Rock Knob, named for the cool spring flowing from high on the mountain. The panoramic view spans many of the southern Appalachian ranges. A self-guiding trail will take you to the top. We ride through Soco Gap en route to the Plott Balsam Range, 457.9. 461.6, Big Witch Overlook. Big Witch was one of the last of the great Cherokee medicine men. On our way to our final destination, the Oconaluftee Visitor Center,
and the entrance of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, milepost 469.1. This marks the conclusion of our long but very enjoyable journey. We realize that the Blue Ridge Parkway is much more than what we've described here. We've not introduced you to the numerous events, the local customs, the character of the Appalachian region. We will leave these for you to discover.
Take the time to experience the Parkway. Take the time to go beyond the Parkway boundary and find out what lies beyond what little bit of land that we own and that we control, because the Parkway opens up a whole new vista of Appalachian culture, Appalachian history, and presents some of the most scenic views in America.
So let's look beyond the forest ridge to a morning sun, rainbow dawn, autumn breeze in the flaming trees, with springtime, yours and mine. All we have to do is remember